Hey, I'm Luke Godwin from Godwin Motors in Columbia, South Carolina. I may talk a little loud. You may not understand anything I say. I am from South Carolina. I don't understand what some other people say as well. So today we're going to talk about time to line. And you may ask, what is time to line? So without further ado, we'll talk about what time to line is. We're going to focus on three things. What time to line is, and most of y'all should already know that. If you don't, we're going to jump right into it and talk about it. I wonder how that happened. The next thing we're going to talk about is how and why do I measure it, and how do I develop a process. So time to line is the time it takes you to get your cars, get your inventory ready from the time you buy it to the time it's ready for sale, right? So day zero, essentially, we buy the car at auction, or we trade it, or we get it from a wholesaler. That's zero. The clock starts right then, okay? And every day we have that car before we sell it, it costs us money, right? Whether you're floor planning your car or not, it costs you money for it to sit there. Our goal is to take that pile of cash we just purchased at the auction and turn it into a bigger pile of cash. The more often we do that, the more money we make, right? So I put 1 to 3 days for transportation. For some of y'all, it may be 0 days for transportation, depending on where you buy your cars. I buy my cars a lot in South Carolina, but also in Florida and Texas. So it could take me up to 3-4 days to get my cars. So we've got a gap there. Then transportation to the VDP ready. Everybody know what a VDP is? Anybody do not know what a VDP is? Taylor Bird, you're not in the car business. I mean, you kind of are, but that's all right. All right, we'll talk about that in a second. And then 7 to 10 days to get it to the front line. Everybody in this room may say right now, I'm getting my cars ready in 5 days. Who thinks they get their cars ready in 5 days out there? Anybody? Anybody? Michael Darrow. I saw you the other day talking about that. We'll have to talk about that. Are you measuring it somehow? Okay. Is this front line ready to y'all? Does that look like a good front line? Anybody? Everybody? All at once? Yes. Okay. Yeah, that could be front line ready. Or is this front line ready? What is this? Anybody? That's my front line on my website. Do I have more people that shop my website or stop by my store every day? Website, right? Who doesn't think more people are on your website than actually in your store? Anybody? Okay. So this is front line ready to me as well. There's two different types of front line ready. Your VDP, your vehicle description page, which is your website, and there's parked on your front line ready. VDP website ready. I want it washed and stickers removed, a minimum of 3 exterior pictures, possibly all of them if it doesn't need any body work. And we all buy cars that don't need body work. We all buy cars that do need body work. So you could have all your pictures done as soon as the car lands if you want to, all your exterior pictures. I want it priced as soon as it hits the floor, or actually after I buy it. I want the description written, and I want the coming soon overlay on the picture. And if you see down there in the bottom, we have that coming soon there. Can anybody see a defect in this car? Anybody? I had to paint the hood and the top of that truck. It was not done previous to this, okay? But you can't tell that, can you? I had that car sold before it hit the lot ready to go. I probably had it sold 5 times. It took me a delay in body work because my dad went on a cruise. Anybody ever have that happen? Oh, man. Anyway, so it was in lane ready to go. And then he just says, you know, I'm going on a cruise next week. Oh, well. And this is front line ready. To me, this is the old school front line ready. That's the reason I have this picture of an old lot. You know, it could be, I think it was in Cincinnati, Ohio. But back in the old days, before the internet, I sold cars before the internet, you had to have the car sitting on the front line for anybody to see it. And to me, front line ready is fully serviced to your standards, and everybody's standards in here is going to be different. My standard may be less than some, it may be more than others, and that's really your standard. So just to your standards ready. Body work done, full detail. And detailed coming from auction isn't fully detailed. You know, we can go into that on another whole deal, but make sure you have a real standard of what your cars look like when they hit front line. Window stickers, and all pictures on the website and the coming soon removed. There's a big debate on how many pictures you need on your website. I think you need in the 40s, and some of you may debate that, but it's a really good practice to have as many pictures that the customer can essentially buy the car just by looking at it. So when they get there and they look on the website, and they get there and look at the car, they go, oh, wow, those pictures really describe the car well to me. I know what you're thinking, though. I cannot sell a car if it's not frontline ready, right? Any of you ever sold a car before it was ready? Yeah? Yeah, I think you can. These are the reasons you can. On average, a customer shops online for about 17 days before purchase. Y'all believe that? You should. Our average internet lead to delivery is 7 days. And some of y'all may think that's high in the buy here, pay here industry, but I don't. Because you've got to get your documents together. That customer may not have enough down payment. They may be waiting on another check. They may be doing this. So we start that lead, and if they buy, it's about 7 days away. So my question is, can I get that car ready in 7 days? I think I can. More cars available on your website increases your web traffic and your Google ranking. And I don't know why. I'm not a Google expert, but I can tell you this. If my website drops below 25 cars listed for sale, and that might be really low to some of y'all, that might be high to others, but as soon as that happens, our web traffic goes down. I mean, just drops off the face of the earth. And if I bring that up to 40 to 50 VDPs on my website, web traffic goes crazy. And I can't answer why that is. I'm just telling you that's what happens. And can I build a potential list of buyers for that inventory piece? And what I mean by that is, if I have that Tahoe right there, and Tahoes are good sellers for us, so that might not be the best, the best piece of inventory to look at. But if I can list that piece of inventory for a Tahoe, and I can build a list of people who want that Tahoe, and as soon as it's ready, call the first person on that list and say, hey, the car's ready, come get it. But also, I can, during that time of getting that car ready, I can buy another one. So I can sell that one. I can switch the next person to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. So it's a good way to help source inventory by having it on there. And of course, help your inventory control in turn by doing that. So how do we measure it? So let's talk about a couple ways to measure it. 2 ways that is the biggest thing. You want to purchase the front line, and you also want to arrival to front line. And the reason you want to do that is because you may have a problem inside your transportation process and not necessarily in your recon process. Who here buys cars that they have to get shipped in? Everybody's hands should be going up because everybody should be using internet buying to buy cars. And so if you're not using a transportation system, I recommend doing that. Central Dispatch is what I use. I'm not here to advertise for them, but I can tell you this. I can buy a car in Texas on Monday, and I can have it typically in Columbia Wednesday or Thursday. That's pretty quick, right? I'm not sure the U.S. mail can do it that quickly. So if you know that as soon as I buy that car, I list it on Central Dispatch, and that car is getting there, I don't have a problem in the transportation process. Now, if you live somewhere very rural, you may, because it may not be a good idea to source it from that distance. I want to build a web sheet to track the process. Or I wanted to subscribe to one of the companies that tracks this for us. And there's several very good companies out there. The problem I have with that is sometimes we, as car dealers, buy these shiny products, and we go, here you go, use it. And Joe Mock, what happens when we do that? It fails because, one, we didn't develop the process to use that piece of software we bought, and 2, we just don't use it, right? So you can spend the money to do that, or maybe to start with, let's build a spreadsheet to track what we're doing. And so why do I measure it? Because there's a cost for the asset to sit. So do any of y'all use floor plans? Hands up? Okay. So it definitely costs you money to sit, right? How about y'all that don't use floor plans? Does anybody here think it costs them money for that car to sit? It does. And I hear some old timers talking about, oh, that car can sit here for days or years. It doesn't matter. It's not eating anything. It is. It's eating cash every day. So we measure it to increase turn, free up capital, decrease expenses. And an interesting statistic I learned while studying this was that for every 2.5 days decrease in time to line, you get 1 more turn a year. That's a pretty big deal. And I think all of us, maybe not Michael Darrow, but all of us can get our cars ready 2.5 days faster. I know I can. I'm working on it. And it increases gross. The quicker you sell anything, you make more money. Now you say, maybe I took a short deal here and I turned it in 7 days. Well, you probably did the right thing. So just faster you turn it, the more you can buy, the more money you can make. We need a process. I'm reading a book right now from the founder of Ritz-Carlton. And this guy, if you haven't read things about him, he's just, customer service is his deal, right? He wants to make sure everything he does is just ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. That's his motto. Well, when they opened the first Ritz-Carlton in Buckhead in Atlanta, he encouraged every person there, every person who was staying overnight, to order room service for breakfast, right? And so he found out after a while of people doing this that people were getting mad at the brand. And they were upset because the room service wasn't getting there fast enough. So they were throwing away food. They were making customers angry. And they weren't getting their job done. So he decided to look into the process and figure out why this was happening. And he gets everybody in that step of that process into a room, and he says, okay, let's walk through what we're doing here. So he asks the guy who takes the order, how are you taking the order? Tells him, he says, okay, well, that's right. Okay, well, how is that order being relayed to the cooks? He says, that's how it's doing. Okay, well, that's working. Well, now what are we doing at this process? Well, that works. All these every step in this process works. What's the problem? Well, what he found was the last person in the process was the guy delivering the food up and down the hotel. And he found that it was taking them 15 minutes to get on the elevator. He was waiting for 15 minutes on the elevator. He said, what in the world could be going on that the most time this should take is 2 minutes, right? What he found was, he said, I'm gonna hire somebody to sit in the elevator on a stool. And that person sat in that elevator on a stool. And he noticed that every time he went up, a guy would get off the elevator, block it with a block of wood, go get some sheets, take the sheets back into the elevator, right up to the next floor, block it with a sheet of wood, piece of wood again, walk off, take those sheets, put them on the cart for the maids, walk back in, and this process kept going on and on and on. So they figured out where the process was blocked. And they said, well, why are you doing that? He said, well, we only have 2 linens per bed, 2 sets of sheets. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Why do we only have 2 sets of linens per sheets? He said, well, owner, founder, we were so cash strapped to start this hotel that we only could buy 2. He says, well, if we have 3, that'll fix that whole problem, right? So what that shows you is the process wasn't necessarily broke, but people in the process were broke. Or either as a dealer, we broke the process before it even started. So we got to have a process. So these are 10 questions that you should ask about your dealership to develop this process. 1, how many cars do we sell a month? That's number 1. And how many cars do we want to sell a month? Because you could say, I want to sell 70 cars a month, but if you're only set up to get ready 35 cars a month, I think you're going to have a bad end up here. Because you're only going to sell 35 cars, that's all you're getting ready a month. What is our current turn? How many cars are we selling? What's our turn? I'm going to tell you why the magic number is 40. And your turn, everybody in this room, your turn needs to be more than 8 times a year. In the buy here, pay here industry, you can probably turn yourself out of business, so be careful not to get it too high. But if you're not buy here, pay here, you might could, getting up to 12. Joe, you're probably sitting around 12 or so, right? 9, very good. I think 9's a great number. I think 9's a really good number. Yeah, that's a good number. So, how many cars do we average in inventory? You don't want to have more than 1.5 times the amount of cars you're selling per month in inventory because you just got sitting cash, right? So, we talked about this just for a second ago. Do we transport cars from other auctions that aren't close to us? And for us, folks that live in bigger areas, this isn't a big deal because if I'm on I-20 and I ship a car from Los Angeles, now I'm going to have to pay $1,000 probably to get that car from Los Angeles, but I can get it pretty quickly and that trucker doesn't mind bringing it over. But if I live in somewhere in the middle of the cornfield in Iowa or Nebraska, that might be a little different story. So make sure that you're sourcing your cars from a place that you can get them to your lot easy. And we all have problems with sourcing cars, right? Can anybody buy more cars than they need? No. Maybe Tracy. Tracy's got a good way of doing it. Do we do our recon in-house? Do we sublet, or is it a combination? And it might make sense to some people who don't have a huge shop to sublet their cars out. I'm a person who likes to bring all my cars in-house, get them ready, do everything in-house, so I'm not spending a dime of my money to anyone else. But that might not be the best thing for me, and it may not be the best thing for you. So I would look at, what's your combination there? And do you need a standalone facility? I would say if you're selling, 100, 200 cars a month, I would have a facility that's off-site, and I have all my recon going on right there. So it's done. I bring the cars into my dealership. I sell them, and that's it, right? And there may be a combination of subbing some things out. Maybe you have a great repair facility for getting your cars ready in-house, and maybe your body work needs to be subbed out, and maybe your detailing needs to be subbed out. The only thing that we really do well is detailing. So maybe I should sub out other stuff, but not really. What's the current parking situation look like at your dealership? And you may say, why does that matter? Does everybody know exactly where the cars you have for sale are sitting? So at our dealership, the way it's set up, we have cars for sale down all one side and in the front. And what happens is when cars get delivered, they can get kind of mixed around in all that area, right? So if a customer comes to the dealership, they go always to which ones, y'all? Which ones do the customers want to buy? The backlot cars, right? Because they're cheaper. Well, they're just not ready. So look at your parking setup, and you need to design this parking setup to help your recon. So print out a Google map, draw which section cars should be parked in during each stage of recon. And you need to hold your staff accountable for this, because if you've got a car that is supposed to be in detail and it ends up being parked where techs are supposed to get their cars, detail won't know that that car needs to be detailed, and the techs will try to get the keys back to that car to try to get it through the shop again. And they may even change the oil again, so not only did it cost you time, it's costing you materials as well. So make sure you have a specific place for every car that's in each step of the process. If you're doing all internal recon, how many bays just for recon? So we do customer pay work, we do our warranty work, and we do recon. So this will also tell you how many cars you can produce a month. If I quit doing all customer pay work, I'm probably overstaffed for getting cars ready. We sell anywhere from 30 to 40 cars a month. So the reason I have the staff I have is because I know I got to get so many cars ready, and I also know I've got so much customer pay work I've got to do. So how many bays do I designate just for recon? Well, in my shop, I can designate about 1.5 bays to that. And how many techs do we have for internal recon? I would suggest that you have one tech that only does internal recon. If you're selling 80 cars a month, you probably need 2 techs doing that. On average, it takes about 4.6 hours of mechanical recon per car. And if you're buying some heavier problems, it may go up. But in general, about 4.6 hours. We don't have rust, so that would, of course, lose laughing over there, because, he may have to replace every brake line on a car. So just in general, 4.6 hours would produce about 40 cars a month. And any good tech should be able to do that. And that does not include detailing and body work. We allow 4.5 hours per detail as well. And our cars are spotless when they come out. You may not need to detail that extensively, but I would say in general, 4.5 hours is a good mark to pay for that. And body work, and that all depends. If you've got a bumper, bumpers should take about 2 to 4 hours depending. So you can add that up pretty quickly. How much customer pay work, policy work, warranty work does my shop do? Because your shop may not be able to handle the load you're putting on it. That is a huge problem that we all deal with, because we think as car dealers that we can get anything done, right? We can buy 100 cars a month. We've got 5 technicians. We can get them ready. We can also do, 40 oil changes a week, and we can do this and we can do that. Guys, you can't. You've got to look at what your shop can handle. And it's all math. That's all it is. It's math. How do we take the amount of people we have, the amount of space we have, how many hours is it going to take to get it ready? Does my dealership need an internal inventory manager? I believe I made this term up just the other day. And I think if you're selling more than 40 cars a month, that you need one. You need one person on staff that's designated to, as soon as that car hits the ground, they're in charge of that car till it gets ready. Every one of them. I used to try to do this myself. It can't be done. You can't sell cars. You can't get cars ready. You can't work on cars. You can't do all this if you're selling 40 cars a month. It's just not going to happen. So if you're selling more than 40 cars a month, hire somebody to do this. So who is currently taking your pictures, writing the descriptions, and getting your cars on the website? I think it needs to be this guy, the internal inventory manager. And you may say, where do I hire someone like this? So there's a lot of young people out there that really love cars. Cars are not going away. As much as people may want to tell you that everybody's going to be driving around in Ubers that are self-driving, it's not going to happen. So there's a lot of people out there that really love cars. And a lot of them work at parts stores. They work at the counter at parts stores. If you walk into the parts store and you see a guy who's got a great smile and he really loves to sell you parts and he likes to talk about a car and he knows you run a dealership, that's your guy. He's going to get those cars ready. He already has a good knowledge of parts because he's been working there. You teach him a few little things and he's going to be great. So look for that guy. And also, most of those people, what can they do? They can take pictures. They can do video. They can do all the things that us older car dealers can't do. Create a process and write it down. This is so key. You can have this process in your brain, but if you don't have it written down, your staff does not know what to do. And if a car's just sitting there, you can say, well, this car's been sitting here for 2 weeks. Why is it here? Well, it needs detail or it needs body work. Did anybody know to do that? No. So write the process down. This is what my process looks like. And I like to use colors and graphs and all these crazy things. So we purchase and arrange transportation the same day. If you buy a car at your local dealer, you need to figure out how to get it to your lot, right? Same thing. If you buy 5 cars in California today, you need to get those coming to your dealership today. Cars arrive at dealership. We're all excited. We've got cars to sell. We remove the stickers from the auction. We wash exterior. We vacuum if it doesn't need much. And we get our pictures right then. Initial exterior pictures. At that point, the car goes on the website. It's already priced. The description's written. And the car is ready to sell. We start getting leads in on that car immediately. My internal inventory manager test drives every car. I want consistency in how my cars are reconned. And the only person that can do that is someone who's in charge of doing that every day. He drives it. If there's an issue, he gets with the tech and we talk about it, or he gets with me. That internal inventory manager writes the internal ticket for the internal tech. Then the designated internal-only tech inspects the car, gets it on the lift, changes the oil, pulls the tires off of it. We go through the brakes. We do everything we need to do. He builds a list for the internal manager. The internal manager and the tech okay the repairs. At this point, that tech can assign a car to another tech internally to say, hey, you don't really have a lot going on. I'm going to give you this car to do. This is all you need. The parts have been ordered. Off you go. Then he can go and get another car and start that same process again so we can get as many cars ready as possible. Or he can just go ahead and repair it right then. If the car is on the rack, it needs front brakes and rotors, it needs an oil change, and that's it, he knocks it out. The car is then gone to detail, and the car is ready, right? So as soon as that tech gets ready, the car goes to detail or body. Then the car is done. Very key step here, y'all. The internal manager redrives the car. Why do we want to do that? Anybody? We want to do that because we may have missed something. The tech may not have done what he said he did as well. So let's make sure we re-verify that car is ready to go. and let's update our VDP. Let's finish the pictures. If we were only able to take 3 pictures to start with, let's do all 42 pictures. That's my number. 42 pictures. Let's get our video. Let's get that car ready to go. Take the coming soon off of it, and the car can be sold. So books and articles on this. The founder of Rapid Recon, and I'm not working for Rapid Recon, so don't take that as saying this is what you need to rush out and buy, but they were giving away books, I think, at NIADA Convention this year, and they always give them away. That is a great book to read. It is free, y'all. And it's advertising in there, but it is great. It's got a lot of insight. And there are 3 more articles. If you search the web for those, they'll come right up. And some of them are V-Auto models about how, getting these cars ready faster and getting them sold faster helps. But that definitely is another way. Read, study, find a good process, write it down, and get it done. Every day that car sits, it's costing you money. And you can find Jeff Watson and me on the Independent Dealer Podcast. This is my direct contact information. I can send you these slides, if you need them. Any questions? You got to do it, Tracy. I'm sorry, I'll repeat the question. His question was, if we, as buy here, pay here dealers, we talk about, I'm talking about turn. And we all know that we need to stock up this time of the year, right? Because we've got tax season coming. And tax season is so short nowadays that you've got to be ready to go. You can't sell, 20 or 30 cars on a weekend, expect to source 20 or 30 cars and get ready for the next weekend. So the question, or my answer is simply, you've got to kind of take those extra stockpile cars this time of the year out of your equation of turn. Because if you don't buy them now, your sales are going to suffer. Those 4 weekends a year we get that are just crazy. So will it hurt your turn for the end of the year? It's going to hurt your turn, yeah. But your increased turn at the beginning of the year, I think, makes up for that. So I wouldn't stress over that, because I'll probably buy an extra 60 cars over the next 90 days to get ready for that. Any other questions? Got to be some more. We got time. Yes, sir. How important, you ask? Well, if it increases, I'll tell you a story. A few years ago, when texting to customers just started, I came out to convention and I signed up for a texting service, and it was $500 a month, okay? Which sounds like a crazy amount nowadays because texting's gone down so low. And I came back and I said, we're going to text all our collection customers, and we're going to, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do. 6 months later, we weren't using the software. So I'd pay $3,000 for nothing to be done. And then I developed a process to use the software that we had purchased. And automatically I could see the rewards of texting customers to get them to give us payment arrangements, right? So I'd say that as an antidote because software can help you, period. And I don't think there's any doubt that Rapid Recon or Lot Ninja, or what Tracy, what's the one you use? Recon Ninja, and there's more out there. 100% they're going to help you. But you've got to have a process in place, and you've got to hold people accountable for any software you use. Because if not, you're just wasting money on software. What I would recommend is build a spreadsheet first that tracks every piece of the process. Now, if you don't like to build spreadsheets, which I do like to build spreadsheets, then that may not be for you, and it may be beneficial. I think Rapid Recon is maybe $500 a month, and if investing $500 a month reduces your time to line by 2.5 days, it's way worth it. So if you subscribe to it, make sure you use it, build it into your process. If we go back to this, if I had Rapid Recon or one of those softwares, right after that purchase and arranged transport the same day, my next arrow would be enter it into Rapid Recon. So what I'm saying is make sure you use it. Make sure the people you put in charge to use it are using it. That inventory manager should be using it every day. You should, as an owner, as a manager, or whoever that manager of that person is, you should be pulling the reports from that software every day going, where are things in that process? Do I have a yellow light? Do I have a red light? Do I have a green light? And that's it's the same as CRMs, no matter what it is, no matter what the product is. If you're not following up to see if someone's using it, it's not worth it. But if you are, it is. Would be my answer. Long answer, sorry. Any other questions? Joe? Right.
Everybody has to be on board, and that's why, we try to make it time. I just had to cancel it because we weren't all on board yet. That's partially my fault. I figured I could have them all ready for recon. They do a sales training thing, and then, everybody's gonna be masters of it. It doesn't work that way. So he's right. You have to write down the process first, and then you got to live by it or die by it. That's it.
And that is so true with everything. If you, one more thing to add on to that, buy-in from your staff matters in everything you do. And when you're developing this process should not be developed on your own, not by you. You shouldn't sit down one day and go, this is what we're going to do. So this has changed since I first wrote it down. Because at internal tech and manager OK's repairs, what we were doing is we were ordering all the parts, or where the inspection happened, we were ordering all the parts and putting them in the trunk of the car. That was the plan, right? Because Joe McCloskey, that's the way they do it. And Joe's brilliant. So I figured if Joe's doing it that way, that's got to be the right way for everybody's dealership, right? Well, guess what was happening in my dealership? That didn't happen, but that could have happened, Tracy. What was happening was this. We were ordering parts again sometimes. Or the tech didn't look in the trunk. Or they didn't make it to the trunk. I had a pile, when we started this process, y'all, I have these part carts that we have in the shop. I looked at one day, and if it had, aired tires, they would have been down on the floor because it was loaded with parts. We didn't know where any of the parts went. So guess what? We stopped ordering the parts until the car was on the rack. And I'm lucky we can do that because I have several different part stores, within a mile of my dealership. So what I'm saying is get with everybody in this process. You should bring your internal inventory manager in, your car buyer in. You should be in this process if you're different than any of these people. And the tech who's in charge of the internal inspection should be in this process. And if you're a detailer, if you've got a problem in your detailer, everybody needs to be sitting inside of that meeting when you decide this is how we're doing it. Because if not, you're going to create a problem for somebody down the road, and you're not going to get buy-in. And buy-in is so important, as Joe was talking about. Anybody else? I can answer any question for buy here, pay here, I promise. How much are we paying an internal inventory manager? So I'm paying him salary right now because we're in the very early stages of developing. Let me rephrase that. We're not in the early stages of developing the process. We are in the middle stages of fine-tuning our process. And so we are paying him right now $600 a week, Alexa? Does that sound right? $600 a week. And he'll get bonuses. But I think the way you build a good pay plan for this person is a base salary, which I think a lot of millennials want, base salary. Plus, when they hit certain goals, and my goal here would be how many cars they get ready that month. So let's say I'm paying them $25 to get a car ready. But let's say we tier it from $10 to $25. And if you get that car ready in over 10 days, you're only going to get paid $10. If you're getting it ready from 7 to 10, it's 15. If you get it ready below that, it's 25. So whatever that number is, I think that's the way that you'd build a pay plan.
That sounds good.
You got to track it. So that's the reason you have that spreadsheet. And on that spreadsheet, there should be 2 columns of days. One column should be amount of days it took to get it ready once it hit the lot, and the next one should be the higher number, how long from purchase to get ready. And I guess they could put any number they want to in there, but what we do is you specify a date. This is the date it arrived. This is the date it was purchased. The day it arrived. This is the day it was ready. Subtract them, then you get your numbers, and that way you know, hey, he got 25 cars ready in 7 days this month. He got 5 ready in 5 days, and he got 10 ready in 25 days. That's the way I would build that spreadsheet to look. Still people. And that's our business is so people intensive. I don't know. Every time I think we've got enough staff, we hire somebody else. And it's not good for the bottom line a lot of times at first, but in the long run it is, because it takes stress off of us, and car dealers are stressed out people. That's the reason our hair turns gray and falls out, and we look out of shape at times. So Tracy has the best hair in the business, but beside that, anybody else? Very, very good question. My internal inventory manager can take the car home, depending on how backed up we are. We have a designated route that's the same as our designated test drive route. If we know a car has a known issue, we may drive that car further, but it's a circle that starts, I think it's 8 miles. It's in-town driving, and it's also highway driving. So we get everything in that 8 miles. And it takes about 15 minutes to do that 8 miles. About 15. And I think you can find any issue with a car in about that time. There may be some, I don't buy Volkswagens. There's a reason. And also, the one thing, it may take you a little longer to get cars ready depending on what you buy as well. If you deal in, higher end cars with some miles on it and it's hard to source the parts, you may have a different. You may think getting a car ready in 7 days is impossible. I don't know. But you got to keep in mind, whatever you're doing now, I promise you can do better. But you got to track it. You got to know what it is. And if you don't get it better, it's going to probably end up costing you a lot more money. And if you do have a floor plan, it's costing you a ton of money. That's it. The last thing. So many people have to use floor plans. If you do, you should be breaking the floor plan cost out on your balance sheet, on your P&L, not necessarily adding it to each car. What you want to see at the end of the month, how much did that floor plan cost me? Was it, it's easy to say, oh, it was just $300 a car, right? That's easy. And you don't do the multiplication in your head. Well, let's say every month I looked at my P&L statement and the expense was $8,000. Would that change your mind? So just think about that. Anything else? Anybody? All right. Thank you very much.